Like to call the meeting order. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Jennifer.
Jeremy McCart,
Here.
Bernie Paparad,
Here.
Roseanne Bozak here, Travis Dunlap,
Present.
Gordon McCormick,
Here.
Michelle Watkins,
Here.
Aaron Adcock.
Here.
Approval of minutes, July 31st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Jennifer.
Bernie Paparad,
Yes.
Roseanne Bozak. Yes. Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Michelle Watkins. Gordon McCormick,
Yes.
Aaron Adcock,
Yes.
Jeremy McCart.
Yes. Approval of minutes, September 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, Jennifer.
Bernie Paparad,
Yes.
Roseanne Bozak. Yes. Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Michelle Watkins.
Yeah.
Gordon McCormick,
Yes.
Aaron Adcock.
Yes.
Jeremy McCart.
Yes. Communication bills and expenditures. For officers, committee and staff. Gordon.
I had nothing.
Old business, culverts, drainage. Roads, ordinance, inspection. You want to lead the way here? Is there anything changed from the email that you sent? Yeah, okay, I have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess I like going through it, I think it's obviously way more extensive than what we had before, which is great stuff. I had a couple questions, I don't know if it's like for code or where we come up with that. The requirement to be at least 20 feet in length, is that like is that our thing? Like, what if somebody has like a 12-foot height, right? Do they still need a 20-foot height?
Right, well, same thing with the quarter inch slope per foot. That's only gonna be able to work in certain circumstances. That's why it's important to shoot elevation notes on higher low spots. Because if it is a longer run, right, you know, if it's a 8-inch drop and you only got 4 or 5 inches. that was-
Right. I was just looking because the way it's written, it says steel pipe at least 20 feet in length. So the way I interpret that is that would be a minimum standard length that could be shorter than that. And I guess
Yeah, that covers a shorter driveway or a longer driveway.
Surrey, you know, that you had your comment on.
434B. We say recommend. I believe it should be, you come and see you before you do anything. I don't want to get that. I know you're going to come in and get it. That's big. Without you seeing it physically, and then if it gets done and it's not right, then all of a sudden it's thrown on you at the end, saying, oh, you know, I misinterpreted, but they misinterpreted something. If they come in and see you, you go out and look at it and say, this is what needs to be done. And you,
Yeah,
that,
yeah, inspections with pictures and elevation shots,
Yes.
they probably that's work out.
because the recommendation, you want to guys and say, no, no. I got it right, I don't have to see it. But you know, that's the way I.
It was a long story. But
Breathe.
the only other thing I had a question on, would be. So the elevation reading, so it's gonna be under 4-3-1C. Elevation readings of property and any neighboring properties that could be adversely affected are required by a licensed contractor or engineer. I guess my question is, so that has to be done in every instance, not? And do we need to define? So if somebody fixes their culvert and then a property 8 doors down now starts flooding, could that person 8 doors away now say, well, you should have done this? Like, should we limit it to a certain distance, because just because the water is now flowing that has been backed up, let's say, for years, that's not, this property owner is actually just fixing what was wrong.
Sure.
So I guess, do we need to limit it lengthwise?
Yeah, that's another reason why this contractor or engineer in there, because they know what this liability off of the town. And that's something that a licensed contractor and engineer will understand. And also for future development in town, drainage and things like that, it's going to be very beneficial to have something with some kind of recorded numbers and stuff. And something with some problematic areas that were reported.
My only thought was, I don't want to create an ordinance that makes it so hard to do this, that somebody just says, I'm not fixing my culvert. You know, like, that's the one thing that I don't want to create something that's so difficult for somebody to be able to fix a problem. Anybody else has?
So I guess I was gonna maybe back up a little bit and ask what originated this, because I think part of it stems from, I'm not exactly sure why there's a separate section for culverts alone when this ties back into stormwater. And there's an entire section outlining responsibility as far as drainage, including things such as culverts. So I'm not sure, I just thought if I maybe back up with that, because a lot of the responsibility as far as capacity, et cetera, go back to that, I do believe.
That's
Is that an accurate statement?
That's correct, yes. And the culvert itself, you know, whether it's 12 inches or 15 inches, depending on the watershed that it's coming into it. So it's not a specific size or minimum, it's a size that it's calculated. And whether it's a galvanized or HDPE, for example, if it meets the H20 standard or the highway standard, it should be okay. Sometimes HDPE lasts longer than galvanized. But you're right, Travis, I think there is a section in the ordinance that's outlining the drainage, including the MS4 itself.
you had a chance to review that section or?
A little bit, not right.
And the only reason I asked Joe is like some of the, because I think part of what originally it referred back to section 440 and 441 and what was originally in question, I guess. And so again, not knowing the intent of why culverts is a very specific article in there. Maybe it's reference.
There's a separate section in there
Yeah.
for culverts. And what prompted me to look further into that, those situations with complaints with regard to culverts. And I kind of came in the middle of it. And I felt like I didn't have anything solid, one way or the other, to try and find a reasonable solution. For it. That's what I thought, maybe there could be some things added in there, just take out that, those questions and those problems, so they don't make themselves.
Do they contradict each other?
Well, there's a lot of, say, licensed contractor, I'm not sure, licensed contractor might be surveyor or engineer. Either wording, but as far as, again, sizing, capacity, all that stuff ties back into,
But that one doesn't contradict the other.
not per se. But I think maybe that article needs to refer back to, instead of duplicating the work, we need to.
Sure.
That's,
I was gonna ask Joe if, was the problem that you received or some of the complaints that you received, was it existing culvert or lack of culvert?
No, it was all put in, but honestly, I think the situation was the adjacent property was already sitting low, so water wasn't flowing into that hole, and it created a problem between the culvert that was put in that way. It's just that property was already sitting low, so that's again where we have something recorded showing they're saying that, and that's on record, that's filed. It is what it is, and at that point, I guess one of the only things that they would maybe have to try and fix that is if they wanted to do that property up a little bit to make it to where that flows into that. So it does drain. Then at least the town has something established. Situation.
If nothing else, if you want to work with me, we can like review the existing stormwater ordinances that relate to culverts. And maybe see what we need to do, whether it just needs to be referred to there, or, I mean, I think we have the framework to potentially move forward. If anybody else has any other input in regards to what was prepared, if you share that with me, hopefully we could have a better, a more complete draft for the next meeting.
Okay.
And or a better understanding of what we got going on with that. And I don't, we should talk about some water board as well. Okay, see ya. I don't know when, does anybody know when they meet next?
They meet every other month, so they should be meeting Wednesday or next Wednesday.
So, I mean, if that comes down to it, I wouldn't mind going with you if that's what you needed. Maybe talk to them if there's. Did anybody else have anything on this?
Nothing.
New business, fuel bond, maybe here in the community, like this, right?
I look at paper in front of you guys.
You've seen this, right? Yep. Bond spreadsheet. I just would bring your attention that there's a couple of additional certificate of occupancies on there.
You want to?
One that I assume is stated correctly. And another one that is quickly approaching. One of them's for Button Bill. For 1142 Dan. New business permit extension, Mass Tech communication features for AT&T 1240 North Blue Road.
No.
Do you know anything about this? So it's listed as Mass Tech Communications Group for AT&T, and it's got the address of the town hall, so I assume it has something to do with the cellular tower. It says 1240 North Blue Road. For a
Yes.
permit extension.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. Hi. I'm Olivia Ochoa. I'm with Mostech Communications Group. And yeah, we are looking for an approval on a building permit extension application for the placement of a standby generator at 1240 North Boo Road.
Oh,
I didn't see that.
Says equipment delays. Do we know, do we have all the equipment for it? Or are we still waiting for equipment?
We're good to go now. Yeah, the construction is supposed to start November 4th.
November 1st?
4th.
Thank you.
Materials are secured.
I'm sorry.
Materials
Materials
are,
are certain. Yes, yes. We have, yeah.
I guess just as a follow-up question to this, because we just ran into the same situation with the town generator. Are there any utilities or anything that are gonna have to be ran underground to that tower? The last time that utilities were ran underground to that tower, it cost the town about $30,000 to replace our fiber cable. So I just want to know if that's part of this process or not.
I think my colleague Bernard here would be able to answer that for us.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bernard Dumian with Mostech Communications Group. And I'm looking at the plans here and I don't see any underground. This is a diesel generator, a 30 kilowatt Kohler. And they don't have anything as far as underground illustrated on the plans. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Yeah, clearance on the pad.
So they're installing the generator,
Yeah,
okay?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
The muffler on this diesel generator, is it a critical grade muffler? To be used in residential area?
Oh, yes. These generators, for as big as they are, they're incredibly quiet. I believe they run somewhere in like the 65, 70 dB decibel range. So when they're running, they're not really bothersome.
Guess we'll see.
This development,
Yeah.
and looked at. Hopefully give them in the 5 days extension. of the trade session, not because of, you know, that's what it's serious. Yeah. But it's already been approved.
Motion to approve the extension.
Any discussion?
Who was second?
Travis?
Sorry.
You guys.
Any discussion?
Did they pay their?
There be,
Okay. That's all.
roll call, Jennifer.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Michelle Watkins. Yes. Gordon McCormick,
Yes,
Aaron Adcock,
Yes.
Bernie Popcorn,
Yes,
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Jeremy Park.
Yes. New business funding builders, secondary plat approval for phases 5 through 8 in the village of Burns Harbor.
would you like me to address it here or there?
You're closer there, I think that would probably be best. Let's say. Well, you're at this.
My name is Edward Graham. I represent Building Builders, who is proposing a application for a secondary plat to be recorded at phases 5 through 8. at The village of Burns Harbor. And present here with Mr. And Lisa, yeah, very good. I have submitted to the commission prior to tonight's meeting, the application, a secondary plat for phases 5 through 8. Certified as no utility plans for sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water for phases 5 through 8. And then finally, an engineer estimate, as developed on May 14th this year. Mr. Hudson looks forward to being able to add to the community, with 54 lot being proposed over the 4 phases. At present, all public improvements have been installed except for the top course of asphalt phases 6 through 8. I've had communications with Mr. Shem, the village engineer. And I apologize if I have misstated your name. Mr. Hubman would like to receive first with phase 5. It represents 9 lots. And thereafter, we proceed in a sequence of phases 8, 7, and 6. I don't have any further comments. If you care to address the planning commission, Mr. Hubman, please do so.
However, and apartment builders, as you can see, finish the development in those 20 years or so here, and something that most residents in the area would like to see finished, completed, and brought to fruition. So I hope we are both of your considerations.
So I guess the only question I have is, so is the reason we're only doing phase 5 right now, because there's remaining things to do in 6, 7, 8, or?
You know, phase 5 has the asphalt. Typical will still be part of their construction and after that, we put in signage.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Phases 8, 7, and 6, and that's kind of the order we were going to go in. Require only the final lift of asphalt. And then again, the NIPSCO infrastructure and signage. So, but we're kind of prepared to start with phase 5, it would work out well for us to complete that first and then move from the south to the north.
Jeff, anything on phase 5 that is the note of?
In fact, we need to review it as such. We need your approval, I guess, to review that, and if it's satisfactory, we will send a letter to the plan commission. That is the process actually that the applicant will come in requesting secondary plat. You will give us the approval for reviewing the submittal. If the submittal only for phase 5, then we will review only phase 5 as such, that the bond will be only for phase 5. So you are not considering phase 6, 7, 8 at this time. Is that correct, Mr. Putnam?
That is correct, that we would like to submit to phase 5 for sure. But we are prepared to submit for phases 8, 7, and 6 as well. To Vogel Engineering for review.
If that is the case, so if you are applying, I just want to make sure that I understand the application, so we can review it properly. You are applying for phase 5, 6, 7, 8 for secondary plat.
Yes.
When you're applying for those, the bond will include 5, 6, 7, 8 that we are recommending to the town. So I just want to make sure that, you know, the review will include all those 5 phases. I'm sorry, 4
phases, yes.
The bond will be included as well as such, and especially if there is no code or no surface on the roadway, that means a performance bond will be on that surface because it's not complete.
Right.
Right. So phase 5 in this case has been completed and only would require the maintenance bond only. So it's completely up to you, I guess, at this time.
That's right. You know, we would like to get phase 5 in for sure, because that does only require the maintenance bond. Okay, if we can separate the application into 2 parts, and we could also apply for 8, 7, and 6. It's kind of the order we're going to go in. It's kind of why I'm saying that in reverse. We expect to move through the subdivision hopefully within 2 years, to be nearly complete with it. So the last 3 phases, we would like to do the construction without the final lift of asphalt on, so that if there's any repairs needed, we can repair any damage to the roadway and then put a final lift on. So it's, you know, satisfactory. It's perfect when we turn it over.
And I appreciate that so much because it is typical in development to do so. The main thing, I guess, and we can divide the letter of the review to reflect that it's phase 5 only, and then we will have, unfortunately, you'll have to submit as-built for the 3 other phases.
Yes.
Because the surface is not installed yet.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we understand. Back to you. We just need an order or an approval that we can review phase 5. Well, all the phases in this case.
5 through 8 is.
5 through 8. And in the letter, we will divide it where it's phase 5 and then phase 6, 7, 8.
I pause for a quick second. Ryan, can you please close one of the doors? It's really cold. You all look cold. I'm cold and you're closer. Thank you. Sorry, I just didn't want him to do that while we were all talking. Thank you.
I guess just from prior experience, the only other thing I would add with this is that I want assurance that we have a map of the street light infrastructure, all the wiring. Because the rest of the village, we didn't have that. So that is responsibility of the town. If we had absolutely 0 map giving us to be able to locate electrical lines in the ground of the village,
I'll make sure that we have that together for you, and coordinate that with NIPSCO. To have a proper map together so they can be identified and we're not cutting through them and cutting streetlights. It's been a difficulty in the first few phases, from what I've seen, so, I, for sure, we'd like to see that, as manageable as possible.
I'll make a motion, oh, sorry, this is.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion for Global to review phases 5 through 8 and give the plan commission their recommendation.
Sorry, I'm gonna wait for a second until discussion.
Second,
Second discussion.
I believe Mr. Putman, under the understanding that phase 5 has been completed, is that correct?
Yes,
So presuming everything is okay with phase 5, the secondary plat is a ministerial process by itself, and probably Mr. Clay, probably the attorney. Yeah, you would agree with me. So the point, I guess, if 5 is okay, if the board.
So are you looking for a conditional approval upon your review?
Exactly, for phase 5 only. The other phases seems like Mr. Putman is not ready yet for the secondary plat, or at least not at this time. But phase 5, it seems that that's the pressing one. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So to authorize the president to sign the secondary plat, presuming that everything is okay, and you submit all the bonds to the town with the clerk treasurer.
Yes, that's
After
correct.
our recommendation, of course.
And then my motion that, I'm gonna use all the right words now. Look.
I would just add, I'm not sure if documents, copies, sign. That's the latest version of the sentence.
Mr. Patton, I think you're referring to all the signature for the owner and the surveyor of record or the engineer of record to sign on the plan.
You just said the latest. Yeah. This is the.
I don't believe there's any changes to it, but we'll have that final draft and submit it to Global Engineering. And then when those Mylars are produced, the signatures from the engineer would get those.
Sir Patton, the requirement actually from the primary plat has to, oh, I'm sorry, the secondary plat has to match the primary plat that it's been submitted 20 years ago, I think, or more than that, maybe. So the secondary plat has to match the primary as far as the lot lines and the lot actual boundary of the subdivision itself, that it has been approved 20 years ago. So any changes in the secondary plat, we will know that it needs to be corrected, or you have to do a primary plat again. Which I'm sure that's not your intent. Your intent is to have the secondary plat approved based on the primary plat.
The secondary plat will mimic the primary plat.
That's correct. The only thing will change is the certified as-built, if there is any changes, because improvement has been ongoing for the last years.
That's right.
too. So I
Yeah,
think Clay's question is whether or not any of this should have been signed already.
It will have to be at the Mylar. At the end,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that'll have to have it in my law.
The signature will have to match the last deed of record. That is
Okay.
the question. The signature will have to match the last deed of record of the owner of the land.
But do we have one? Right.
We do have the primary plat approved, yes. That was before, I think 2000 or 99, I'm not quite sure. It was the primary plat. That was 20 some years ago, I think.
So I'm amending my motion to make it conditional for Jeremy's signatures based on the findings of global, right?
Through phase
To
5.
approve phase 5
Only.
only, just 5. That's my motion.
Any more discussion? Roll call, Jennifer.
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Michelle Watkins. Yes. Gordon McCormick,
Yes.
Aaron Adcock,
Yes.
Bernie Paparad,
Yes.
Gary McCart.
Yes.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
So we're on the same page though, that we do want to do phases 8, 7, and 6, that have to come back to us. Okay. Fair. Property in the order, there is one housekeeping thing that we need to do with in regard to the withdrawal that we received on a petition from Robert Realty. Our code requires us to actually approve that withdrawal.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any discussion?
They need to be present, Attorney Patton?
To approve the.
Yeah. Petition under time.
Roll call, Jennifer.
Aaron Adcock.
Yes.
Bernie Paparad,
Yes.
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Michelle Watkins, Gordon McCormick,
Yes.
Gary McCart.
Yes. I assume that some people are here to speak about that as a good door. The one thing I'd like to add to that is there's a code that we have. There's some requests for maybe under certain things, but under 14-5-9 D. Well, okay, I'll read C first. So withdraw the petition. Following the publication. Use the mic when. Yeah.
I'm gonna be. I'm loud as it is, but I'll give this a shot. So the withdrawal of petition, following the publication of notice for any public hearing, until the conclusion of the hearing, the petitioner may not withdraw the matter to come before the public hearing without the approval of the commission. And then D is resubmission of petition. A case which has been withdrawn by the petitioner shall not be again placed on the docket for consideration until 3 months after the date of withdrawal. So I just want to caution everybody there that regardless of what happens in the future, as of right now, we accepted their withdrawal. And our town code requires us that there be at least 3 months
after the day of withdrawal before they can be placed on our docket again. Does anybody have any questions from Margaret?
No.
Did you talk about the other stuff there?
Yes.
I guess if we want to address like. Before we go to the order, what the plans of the board is and what we're gonna do. There's absolutely clearly a need to address this in some way. Just leaving it open-ended and doing nothing is irresponsible at this point. I don't think the community nor this board wants to be in a bunch of adversarial conversations going back and forth. Because while Provident withdrew their petition, that doesn't prevent the next person from coming through the door as well. So one way or another, that property obviously is still going to draw potential petitioners in the future. But with the data center itself, we need to figure out what the direction is, define it in our code at a minimum. And
Right, we need to have a definition for it, for data center to begin with, you're right. Then we have to come together, the group of us, to figure out what zone or what zone to be allowed in. We feel the best fit,
if it were allowed,
if it were allowed,
and the terms of it, whether it was permitted or special.
or special exception, right? Now, whether that's a meeting like this or a workshop, it needs to be done. The definition is the easy part, coming together to figure out where it's out. With stipulations, is the hard part.
Do you want to do, I'm gonna do the order in a second. I'm just trying to like get a couple things out there so you understand where we're at. And then you guys can go ahead.
I mean, you're just saying, no, they can't readjust this until at least January, is that correct?
Well, it says 3 months. So today, that withdrawal was accepted on October 7th. So it would have to be 3 months after October 7th.
Then it just starts, that whole process would stop.
Well, then at that point in time, they could resubmit a petition to us. And that's where we would be after that, from my understanding.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about that property, because regardless of if there's a district created or data center language added to the existing ordinance, the other part of it was zoned. So even if the data center district is approved, when it comes to rezoning the property, Jeremy and I looked at Porter County, for example, their zoning districts, and they have some, you know, a really nice way they laid it out in each district, and they kind of say what permitted uses and what are appropriate adjacent districts. And I think data centers, in my opinion, especially these larger ones, are at least light industrial, but heavy industrial. And any of those industrial zones were not appropriate to be next to any kind of residential that we can even see. So there's a lot of precedents in Porter County and other places that even if we had data center language in our code, it doesn't mean it would ever get approved on that property, because that has to get rezoned. So it would be really difficult to prove, the petitioner would have to prove that that property was incorrectly zoned in the first place, or that it wouldn't disrupt anything around. And pretty clear.
I agree with what you're saying. I think that a look at potentially the zoning districts that we have and what are appropriate zoning districts to border other zoning districts. We don't have heavy industrial next to residential, or for that matter, even light industrial. I mean, in our case, obviously, I know we don't have a heavy industrial or light industrial, but anything that would be developed that would be in that range. So like SE6 has a description of light industrial. But whatever would get developed, I think it should be defined, because I think that would give even petitioners, people who are coming to this town, a clear understanding of, hey, it's never gonna happen because of what's there. And prevent things from getting out of hand for no reason when there's a lot of steps to jump through still. This was still, even where we were at, there was still a very long way to go. But anyone else have anything else? Okay, go to the order, any other business? So I would just, similar to other meetings, I would like you to stand up, state your name, your address, and not as many people, so I'd like to keep it trying close to 2 minutes, but within reason. There's Mike, would be like.
Chuck Thomas, 357 Maryland Road, Burns Harbor. I'd like to bring this to your attention. On Sunday, September 22nd, US Steel in Portage, which is the old Midwest Steel plant, had a major electrical fire. They called 911 and the Portage Fire Department responded to the call. Once they got there, they realized that the fire was out of control and declared a major 3-alarm fire. They also asked for CO2 fire truck to help put out this fire. Slight problem. Nobody in Northwest Indiana has that type of fire truck to put out that fire. They had to wait while US Steel shut down their facilities and turn off the electrical feed to that building so they could use water to put it out. I haven't once heard how this planning commission and Provident Realty are going to address these issues of fire safety. One, we have no way of fighting a major electrical fire. Two, we have no way of reaching a 150-foot plus tall building because our current ladder truck only reaches 75 feet. And the one thing I have not heard from Provident Realty is what they were going to do to help out our community. They said nothing for our fire department, police department, or for our street department either. All I have heard is what they want to do. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else you'd like to speak?
Okay, 2 minutes. You guys,
Is it-
this is not new, this is the same information.
From like just a couple days?
Yeah, this weekend.
Okay, so this is, I think I forwarded this
Yep.
over the weekend.
We got it.
At Orlando, 1149 Gustafson Lane, Burns Harbor. So it sounds like you guys are, saying that the zoning itself, when it makes sense for that piece of property, but I do think we should probably go ahead and I'm suggesting to have a 200-day moratorium where we could discuss what that zoning, or not the zoning, but the ordinances would look like. That will allow for any developer to, it would deny them the ability to submit a petition or ordinance for 200 days versus 90 days. You guys could engage the town in meetings, could have town halls. You could also take a look at the comprehensive plan. So 1513 is the policy of Burns Harbor that the enforcement amendment of the administration of the ordinance be accomplished with due consideration of the recommendations contained in the town comprehensive plan as developed and amended from time to time by recommendation of the plan commission and approval of the town council. Town council recognizes that the town comprehensive plan is the policy to regulate land use and development in accordance with the policies and purpose here and so forth. So I think that step one is, basically create that 200-day moratorium to where if we are going to consider data centers, that would be the proper thing to do is look at the zoning and see if any of the zonings would even be conducive to those. And then if you guys do think we need to come up with a definition of data centers, there is there's this handout C that talks about exhibit A to ordinance. So this is what we've gotten for a draft from
Cass County and Missouri. And this talks about how these are special, they should be special use districts. So the reason why you set them up as special use is that you make them highly restrictive on the front end. And then you could back off if, let's say it's light industrial next to industrial, you could say, well, the setbacks don't have to be 1,000 feet, maybe they're 200 feet from that property. But setting them restrictive up front allows you the ability to be less restrictive on the back end. And again, this is if you guys want to put on the path of creating it. This also includes, I won't read all of them, but they include different definitions of data centers. So it talks about cryptocurrency mining, cryptocurrency server farmers, data centers. And again, this might not be perfect, but it's a good straw man to start the ordinance if you guys are going to create one. Also talks about the noise disturbances, sound pressure levels, the industrial uses, like what should happen, I believe, when it's being constructed. And it talks about how data centers should be permitted with a special use permit in industrial. It also talked about proper buffering, proper distancing. So a lot of these counties and towns have figured out, 50 foot is definitely not appropriate. They're pushing things back. Originally, it was 500 feet, but now as the towns are getting more educated, the minimums are now 1,000 feet from residential. And I'm even requesting, 1,500 feet in this one. This also includes 500 foot setbacks from all their usage groups. That's the same usage group as all adjoining properties, and then 200 foot setbacks. Talks about proper lighting. It also talks about on-site monitoring of sound. So the one question everybody had was, well, if they do go past their required ordinances of 50 dBCs or 55 dBCs at certain times, it would be measured by a qualified licensed professional engineer. Sound pressure levels will be measured. And then it also talks about when the generators can run. It gives different DBC levels at different times. Actually, this one doesn't, but the one I originally gave you was different DBCs at different times. This talks about where it should be measured at the property level for the data center, as well as property level from other property lines. And then this was important that I didn't bring up last time. If at any time the data center operation exceeds the standards as set forth in this section, the special use permit shall be revoked and operation shall cease. So that means that the $2,500 ordinance that would get applied doesn't apply to them. They would actually cease operations. Also talk about utilities and resource conditions, so we get those up front. Confirmation of water availability. So that would have to be provided before. This also talks about how the somewhere in here is where the power lines would have to be buried for all utilities. Certain foreign adversaries shall be restricted from developing data centers. You guys could read some of the rest, but it talks about the 15 to 20 foot berms that would be created. From screening standards. And this also includes the 1 mile from 1 mile setback from national parks. A couple other things. So the last section here talks about the differences in light industrial data centers versus heavy industrial. Again, you guys probably do your research, but at first glance, it looks like any data center, it's 150,000 feet square foot in size, or less, equal to or less than 150,000 square feet in size, and requires less than or equal to 40 megawatts of total critical IT would be considered light industrial. Any of the other ones that are above that would be considered heavy industrial. This also includes max height for any of the structure would not exceed 40 feet, which is basically 1 story for data centers. And then we talked about why special use versus permitted use. you guys have any questions on that summary, you guys have the email if you guys wanna email or contact me. It seems like more and more towns are getting, or they're catching on to what these things are. They're seeing what these industrial sites look like. And as they get educated, they make the restrictions heavier and heavier on these things. Thank you.
Hi, Neil Scout, 209 Trail Creek Drive. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time here. I'm gonna talk more about marketing. You've got a 90-day period of time. Strongly encourage you to extend that to 200 days. In that 200 days, bring the public in, citizens, Burns Harbor. Bring them in, do the town hall meetings. Spitball all the ideas that they have. And then you can start to build your ordinance or your zone. Because this is one of the things that has a profound effect on the entire town of Burns Harbor. I'm not adjacent to the property in question, but I'm close enough to be concerned about the impact on my livelihood, my life, my property values, etc. And yet the reaction of the public has been pretty much instantaneous. Got an opportunity to build zoning, maybe never to be used, but it's defined. And if you do it with public input and public participation, it'll go down a lot easier. I think that's all I have. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I know it's a thankless job. I'm sorry.
I know that, I'm sorry, Elaine Kaiser, 209 Trail Creek. I know that you're all looking at the zoning and redoing the zoning, but there are a lot of cities that are now banning these data centers. Chandler, Arizona has 3. They're trying to make an ordinance for no more. Atlanta just passed one that said that is preventing data centers in certain areas of the city. And that area in Virginia that has so many of them, I don't remember the name of the town or how many they have, but they are trying to ban any, they want no more. And they're finding out what energy clogs these things are. I saw an article from Anchorage that they're trying to pass something where they don't get the reduced rates from the energy companies. So there are a lot of ways to look at it. I don't know if Burns Harbor can ban any more or any at all data centers. But if that's a possibility, then the zoning doesn't really matter. Not in this case. So, thank you. Takers.
John Rico, 1560 Lob Wedge Lane, Chesterton. I just had a question. It's more of a educational. I wasn't sure how to ask it, but while we're all fighting this thing, we're doing lots of reading. So we read the town ordinance, and I'm assuming I'm misunderstanding this, where I'd like some clarification. It seems like the town ordinance says special districts are not to be used for future zoning. So it seemed like, and this is what I'm hoping you can answer, is maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it seemed like a petition to create a new special district for future zoning went against the town ordinance. I don't know if anybody can answer that, if that's true or not. But I guess that's a question, because it seemed, if that was true, it seemed like a petition to make this happen and for the board to consider it. It's like you're considering a violation of the town ordinance. So I don't know, like I said, maybe we misunderstood, but it just seemed like to be not in proper order. A request that was not in proper order, and that should be sort of a deal breaker there, you know, if that was true. So I don't know if you can answer any questions like that, but am I making myself clear? about what the
Yeah,
question
give
is?
yourself, but I'm just trying to let you finish speaking.
Yeah, I mean, that was the main question. I mean, yeah, that's the main question.
Okay, so I think you're absolutely correct. I looked at that and we had discussed it back in August. And I'm not a fan of like kind of catch-22 language, if you will, like when you read through that. But the problem that we specifically have, like none of us here were, I don't think any of us were involved in the creation of this zoning from the giddy up, because that happened back in 2009. So if you look through our zoning ordinance, it's anything but normal compared to other cities and towns surrounding. So we don't have a light industrial. We don't have a heavy industrial. I mean, I think we'll report the way that when they adopted ordinances, they didn't have to create an ordinance, all they had to do was add data center to their light or heavy industrial. I don't know which one it was added into, so don't quote me on that one. But they literally just added that to that use. But from my understanding, the way it became legal, or that could have been considered as that, was some of the verbiage that was in the language. In some of the, I guess, the same exact scenarios I threw back to it, and where I thought that maybe it should be considered, from my perspective at least, is throw it right back to look at SD7. So when you look at that same area that you're talking about, there's a thing that says that the special use districts are for pre-existing uses. Okay, absolutely. Well, great. How did SD7 get created in 2009? There's no adult entertainment businesses in Burns Harbor. So if that could be done, because it wasn't a pre-existing use in Burns Harbor, then that's where essentially I think that loophole was created. I'm not saying it's.
I mean, but maybe that was improper.
What's that?
Maybe that was improper. Maybe
That's
creations.
and I absolutely understand where you're coming from. And I think everybody has their own opinions, you just have never got to that extent.
Maybe it's just a procedural thing, like, I mean,
and
maybe the ordinance should be changed to like take out that language or something like.
I potentially agree with you, because if not, like, SD7 really needs to be reevaluated, but that was gonna be something we talked about after. Because if it's only for pre-existing uses, that's not a pre-existing use in Burns Harbor. But like, I understand what you're saying. I
mean,
do.
doesn't that open the door to liability, like, I don't know, say worst case scenario, the town approved it or something like that. The town's people sued or something like that. I mean, wouldn't that hold up to say, hey, the ordinance says this and you sort of violated it? And I mean, wouldn't that sort of put things at risk unless you were to like take a step back and change that? Like, you could vote to change the language and say, okay, it's okay to create special districts for future use or whatever.
I totally understand your perspective, and I've looked at it from that.
It's just education. I'm not trying to be confrontational.
No, I understand. This is great. At least, I can only speak for me. The other 6 members have their own opinions and they can see it in different ways. I don't like the catch-22 type language, if you will, and I keep saying that. I mean, but at the same time, I understand that the alternative is we could have, or this ordinance could have been drafted as the technology district. It could have been its own zoning district. And then basically we would have had to duplicate every single thing across the board just to evaluate it and get to where we are. Now, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that, hey, this is perfect. I know that people have looked at it and said, as the language allows for future use under the SDA portion of it. I mean, just like when you go through Indiana code, there's tons of things that are prohibited, and then you get into another section of it and it allows that same thing to occur. I don't think it's clean and easy to read, and I understand that from your perspective that that's how it looks. And I wish there would have just been a light industrial or heavy industrial where we could say, hey, data centers, if you were going to allow them, they should go in this district. And then make them not necessarily permitted, but if maybe they were made as special exceptions where a variance had to be obtained to be able to get them.
And if they did go in that, you know, industrial or whatever, that would kind of determine where they can and can't go in the town.
Correct.
Yeah.
And at the same time, one of the cautionary tales of this was, because we knew where this was. Because along with this, we had the requests to rezone that one specific property. So along with this, we knew where it was intended to go, at least for this particular instance.
Yeah.
And we never got to talk the requirements that we had to rezone that property. We never got to that. That has its own challenges. I know we've had a lot of conversations individually with people, whether or not it met all of those or not, we have no idea. That would have been up to the petitioner. Yeah, so the burden of proof would have been on the petitioner at that point, which that petitioner was probably at that point in time. So I think we all have our own questions ready to go and things like that, but we never got.
Thanks.
But I totally understand where you're coming from. And I know that there was conversations back in August. Trying to see, hey, how does this potentially work? Is it correct? Is it the right way to do it? And ultimately, we're sitting here and the petition's been withdrawn. And here we go.
And to be honest, and I'll end with this, to be honest, it's not sort of a confrontational between us and you, like, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you refuse this because of this, whatever. It's almost like, hey, us and you, here's your reason why you can deny them. You know, because one of the confusing things was, why do you even have to accept a request like this? Why do you have to consider it? And the answer out back is always, oh, we got to follow these procedures and protocols. We have to consider everything. And it just seemed like, isn't there a limit to what somebody can propose where you can just say, hey, that's like against the law, or that's out of order, or something where you could just refuse it immediately? And so we're trying to find things like that to not just sort of help our own case, but just as a community, as us and you together, how can we prevent stuff like this from, it just seemed like we were at the mercy of a petitioner coming in to do whatever they want, whatever harm they might cause, and you're under the gun, you're full of pressure, and it just, I don't know, that's where kind of this came from, is like, not just us, but us and you. How can we stop things that we don't want or that are harmful, whatever. So anyway, thank you for your time anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try to plan. Okay, if you're familiar or not with the situation, oh, Karen, J. Payton, Chesterton, 2621 Dog Lake Drive. When Provident came to Chesterton, nobody knew. Their first meeting, they had 12 people show up. Mr. Gonzalez told everybody, from what I read in the Chesterton Tribune, or wherever the newspaper, after the fact with regards to this, is that first thing he had mentioned is the sound being an issue. In the paper was written, their aim is for 42 decibels, but that they don't worry about it because they have already made a large investment for landscaping to buffer. They already made it. The man's a liar, as far as I'm concerned, reading that. For one thing, 42 decibels, never. If he can do 42 decibels, every developer be knocking on his door, because that's the problem is the volume, the noise, besides everything else that goes along with it. They're not truthful. When it came time for them, they never made a presentation to the public. When Jane Mufada, if you're familiar with him, put pressure on, tell us. Well, they kept throwing the dollars. You're gonna get all this tax money, like they did to you people. It's mentioned in the first meeting I came to here, where that they said, you're gonna get so much in taxes, you can build a new elementary school every week. Doolin takes care of the schools. They just made a big investment at Yost and modernized it. You're not going to be worried about building schools when you have nobody that wants to live in your neighborhood. Because it's not desirable. I mean, this is terrible. But they feel that that's the pure, this is what you're gonna do, and it's wrong because, of course, as we all know, there's actually 25 states who give incentives for data centers. And Holcomb made this. The best incentives available. They get the tax abatement for what, 50 years? The center itself wouldn't even last that long, it'd be outdated. I mean, it's ridiculous. Once it's they're finished getting their tax abatements and their tax breaks, the money's not gonna come to the town. It's not going to, and who's gonna keep track of them as they're building it? And when they do go out of their scope of the job or what they had promised, then who's gonna come up with the money to go after them legally? When I looked into Providence at the time, they had no data center information on their profile. I looked everything, nothing about a data center except for one situation where Provident Realty acquired land. And it was an abandoned Neiman Marcus store and warehouse. And they, in turn, after they had gotten that, acquired the land, which is what they basically did. Then all of a sudden, a company, I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so, but I'm trying. A company called Hudson, who they are actually an investment company, connected with another builder of data centers, Powerhouse. There's three parties involved. Now, if anything goes wrong with the situation here, well, Mr. Gonzalez told us, Mr. Gonzalez, their engineer, is not going to be anywhere around. It's Powerhouse is going to say, we didn't make any agreements with those. We don't abide by this. I mean, this is just going to be a big can of worms that has opened, and it's not going to be good. Everything that I have read and researched, negative results. People are not happy in Chicago, locally, in Virginia, they're not happy. Buyer's remorse. Once the damage is done, it's no going back. Mr. Gonzalez is nowhere to be found. I don't know. And this facility has, like I said, these people never have built not one. So they don't have a record to prove of what they can accomplish, their decibels, their aim for. And yet when they came to Chesterton, the town council member there thought, oh, this is wonderful. The tax money that we're gonna get, which they're not gonna get. And nothing's gonna come with these abatements. It's not gonna be what you want. And that this is going to provide money for the projects that is gonna be for all, and it was written in the paper, Woodland Capitals, for all of the residents of Chesterton. And the people who live right next door, like I live across the street, the subdivision, from McGrassy at the time. Our property values would have gone down. My husband, when he had heard that this was happening, the first thing he said is, I can't believe we have to move. Who wants to live next to that? When that door was open and nobody could hear because of whatever noise is coming in from whatever facility was, I'm sound sensitive, heard that distraction. That noise that's out there now, you multiply that by thousands of what you're going to be hearing there out of the facility. And this stuff of, well, that we're afraid that the federal government's going to come in and make a decision on this. Federal government does not get involved in local zoning. That is, they leave that. The only time they get involved if it's government funded. And if it's government funded, if they so choose to do a eminent domain situation, the burden of proof is on them that this is being done because how it's going to help the population. That is not going to help anybody. Where our property values, we're retired, 70 years old. You're taking my retirement from equity in my house. I don't appreciate that. I'm worried about it because it's gonna take this whole desirable neighborhood area and make it undesirable. As they said, it's not gonna change the landscape of your area. That's bull. They're lying because once NIPSCO gets in there and they start putting the utilities, the trees and the nice backdrop, they're gonna be chopping away at that. They can't be there. When the people start selling their houses along the way that are behind it because they can't live there, because they don't want to. And they don't even have to be senior citizens like me. I mean, they don't want that. They want to be able to open their windows. The whole thing is wrong. It is wrong. Worthington can't say nothing that you're trying to prevent them from selling their property. Why the heck did they buy a piece of land that was zoned residential? What were they gonna do with it? What, that was like, kind of like a spiteful purchase because they were ticked off because you didn't let them in the first place have that land perhaps. What were they gonna do with it? You tell them, we'll help you sell your land. Provident, their basic portfolio is residential area and commercial property. Tell them, give me a plan. You can make a subdivision there. Build it there. Give them, here, we'll offer, if Provident doesn't want to build houses, well, maybe you can find another realtor. These people here to buy the land and build. And besides that, when our property values go down, our taxes are gonna go down, and you're actually taking money away from the county. There are so many negatives wrong with this. And I would do anything I could to support what Gordon had showed. It's in the book. I kind of like lean towards that because they don't, when they are called in, Provident is avoiding because they have nothing, no proof that they can say that this is going to be a good deal for you people. Maybe you should bring somebody, a representative from NIPSCO, a representative from Connecticut Water, and tell how it's going to affect our current infrastructure. What it's going to do, NIPSCO is already putting out a notice that they're going to require an increase to upgrade the infrastructure, and it's going to be a $32 a month increase for everybody's bill. And that's supposed to start soon, maybe in anticipation of this. Probably NIPSCO and American Water has more information than what they provided to you. It's wrong. They should have never got their foot in the door. I mean, this is a lovely community, a desirable place to live, and it's going to go down the tubes. I do not appreciate that three people out of, as far as the Duneland community, Chesterton last census had over 14,000 population. Porter County, the town of Porter had 6. You have just over 2,200, and then there's Dune Acres, tranquil, as peaceful as that is. And they only a matter of a few hundred houses. And 3 people from this town is going to cause harm to all of us. And we're gonna lose our investments in our homes, our property values. No, that doesn't apply. Nobody can sue you. When I've researched litigation online, Worthington cannot sue you for not selling them. The Brassy has not yet sued the town of Chesterton for ruining their sale. They haven't. The government cannot step in and do anything because they don't have any. This is not anything of eminent domain. They can't. But who can? Who can are the people. The people. And this is online legal advice, okay? And they showed the situation, the empty field, and all the houses around. They said who is likely to sue would be all of us who have lost, who have suffered over this, and who are exposed to all the pollution, noise pollution, whatever, bad environment, the possibility of outages. We we the people can sue. And I'll tell you what, if there was a class action lawsuit, show me what I signed, I'm right behind you 100%. And nice people, but as far as I'm concerned, if 3 people can ruin my life and everybody else, the 3 people who it would take to approve it.
Well, it would take 4.
Okay, all right, thank you for correcting me on that.
Probably, it's not a current petition on the table.
Right,
I understand your concerns.
yes, you're in the same house, you live here.
No, I understand that.
Yes.
I absolutely do. And have a vote. Okay?
Serious. See, I mean, the problem is they are lawyers.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to talk orally about something that isn't here to defend itself. I wouldn't want you to talk about me, and I wouldn't talk about you without speaking.
And that's why they're not here, because they have.
They're not here because they withdrew their petition.
And they have no funds. It's like they did,
Mr. Thomas, is it going to be?
No.
Switch? Okay, quick. please.
Okay, you know that NIPSCO was in the process of shutting down their coal-fired power plants. So where are we gonna get the energy from? The other question, the thing I have is there's a lot of veterans in this area that suffer from PTSD. With the noise level, how is that gonna affect them?
I don't want to split hairs and argue because we live in a community. I'm not saying that this would help. Okay, that's not what I'm saying at all, but we just don't have the information.
I understand.
Like, I can't, you're asking questions that.
So that's why we need to get
Literally,
NIPSCO.
I can't answer for.
We need to get NIPSCO and American Water involved just on top of it. Because they have not come out with how much energy usage are they gonna have? How much water usage are they gonna have? What's that gonna entail to our rates and where's the power gonna come from? When NIPSCO shutting these facilities down? They're not the only ones that are shutting coal-fired power plants down. They're not gonna get it from the mill, I guarantee you that. So, there we go. There's more things to think of. So I thank you for your attention.
Thanks. Anybody else that hasn't spoken yet? Real quick. Be real quick. Thanks.
So what would the process look like if we wanted to submit a 200-day pause? I don't know the process of that.
But we have previously spoken about it, that's why your comment on there, and we were looking for like a central precedent for the request. That
Moratorium.
in regards to a moratorium. What, is there any precedent in Indiana? So I understand where you're coming from, or is it Missouri that did that? Okay, but in Indiana, because we operate on our laws, yeah, is there any precedent that you know of? And the bigger question is, the plan commission being an advisory board, would the plan commission be the appropriate board to be
Right.
doing this, or would it be a town council?
I'm not aware of any Indiana code that requires 200-day moratorium. The current town code, which we discussed this evening, a 90-day pause essentially before the petitioners can bring back the same petition. And that's what they're operating under choice. Council passed a new ordinance next month that say it's going to be 200 days. That wouldn't apply because the law, in fact, the code, in fact, at the time to 90 days.
Yeah, but if they haven't submitted their petition in between that time.
It's very difficult to hear you again.
I think we're just getting that.
If we change it before they resubmit, then we might be able to get away with that.
The training to get away with it.
Right.
You know, we talk about the liability of the town if we get sued by residents for permitting something, but we're also not considering the liability. I mean, we just kill something before it goes through the due process.
You're not killing it, you're delaying it.
And no, I'm talking about just voting it down at the beginning because we don't like what's there. And giving the petitioner their due process. and the exposure and potential liability to the plan commission, to the town, if we shut something down because we don't like it.
Again, we're not asking to shut it down. We're asking for a 200-day pause so that we can actually go about this properly. Looking at the comprehensive plan, you guys doing research about what proper setback should be, because there's a lot of questions that a lot of people don't know the proper answer to. So if I asked what a proper setback is to all 7 of you guys are probably gonna be different answers. And same with the residents. So the 200-day pause would allow us to meet as a group, hold proper town halls before another petition even comes. Because I think technically, if you're gonna create a new zone based on the comprehensive plan zoning, I think the town council has to initiate proper town halls and proper meetings to discuss that zoning, even before a petition submitted.
Look at.
Plan commission or council wants to look to change that provision, we certainly can, but I would anticipate that the petitioner might say that doesn't apply to us because what the town code was at the time. If we was through the petition. Didn't vote on
But at least maybe not.
I don't know why he's the only one that gets the thought. He can interrupt everybody else. It's their call.
I would just ask both of you to be respectful and allow him to answer and allow you to speak. What? We call your ask.
So if the town wants to move in that direction, I would anticipate that the petitioner would respond to that. The town code in effect at the time you voted on accepting our withdrawal said 90 days.
Right.
So I'm just telling you what I anticipate. That doesn't mean we can't try to do it, but then what's our liability for them saying you didn't let us, you set the bar higher for us.
Okay, so then I guess that would be my next question. Who would, so because it's under the rules of the plan commission, is the plan commission the appropriate board to be requesting to change the rules by which it's on? Or should the town council be the one that do that? I mean, it kind of seems like
it could be initiated at either level.
I just don't want to do it the wrong way. I mean, because I think changing the rules, like, so that I can do whatever I want, like, I don't want that to be the case. Regardless, we know that we have 90, or I'm gonna stop saying 90 days, just say 3 months. Because it's 3 months from the state. Yeah.
So you guys are gonna figure all this stuff out in 90 days?
I'm not saying that we're gonna be able to do that. I mean, that's wishful thinking, wouldn't you say?
That's why I'm asking for 200.
The 200 is gonna guarantee it?
200.
Okay, so if my town code says 90 days, okay, which is what I'm acting on based on the scope that I read earlier today. I guess what I'm looking for is, if there is no precedent, how do I come up with the number of 200? Like, where do I get that number from? And if you're gonna say Missouri, I'm gonna tell you, well, Missouri has a bunch of traffic laws like enforce years. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not just asking for a 200-day moratorium on Provident. I'm asking for a 200-day moratorium for any data center petitional ordinance.
Right, and I would ask you give me an idea where that precedent comes from in Indiana, because I can find situations all over the country that I would love to be able to do it the way they do, but we operate within the confines of our planning commission rules. I guarantee it's different in Missouri than what it is for Harvard in Indiana. Like, I am bound by Indiana code. There's several things. I mean, that's why the majority of us were so careful going through this. And I understand that you all wanted us to give our opinions of this situation. Well, simply stating our opinions on this board, and part of that is we lose our vote. Like, so if I literally say what my opinion is about changing a zoning district, I am restricted from voting on that scenario. Okay, there's Indiana code, I could provide that to you to back that up. That's why this board was so careful. Everybody wanted us to come on our show. But understand, by doing that, you lose your vote, and my vote's important. Okay? And I think the majority of us feel that same way. But That's why we're trying to follow these rules, even though it's not.
So you're saying that because Provident had already submitted a petition that we would never be able to ask for a 200-day moratorium on data centers because, let's just fast forward like 6 months from now, because they had that out there, we can never create a 200-day pause on a moratorium ever. Because, do you know what I'm saying? Like after 6 months, they would still have this current petition out there and they would say, well, hey, we could submit a petition tomorrow because, you know what I'm saying? Like this doesn't go on forever. We should be able to ask for a 200-day pause so we could basically get our shit together and get proper ordinances. Because when are you guys gonna do it? Like you keep saying, like, we want to have the stuff in our current zoning, we want to define the data centers, we want to put proper setbacks in. So if it's not going to be in the next 90 days, when would we do it? And if we don't do it in the next 90 days, and you're saying we can't wait 200 days, we can't have the moratorium, then we're just going to be in the same situation in 90 days.
Right, so, but here's my thing. If I could just do something and I'm off the whim and I say, hey, yeah, absolutely, let's do that, I'll make that, well, president. But I have to have precedents and things to back that up.
Yeah, and I'm not asking for it today.
But, well, I mean, you kind of are, but I mean, I understand.
I'm not.
But what I'm saying is we have 90 days right now. Maybe that's something that can happen, but I'm not gonna tell you it is guaranteed because I haven't found like, have you heard of Chesterton or Porter doing it? Or Portage or like if there was a precedent or an Indiana code that says, yes, hey, this is it. And it's 200 days that amount, like, cool, absolutely, let's go that route. But
There's got to be somebody that does it first.
like, so how do we come up with 200? Like, let's start there. Where does the number 200 come from? Because generally, like in Indiana, they do it in 30-day increments. You'll see stuff 30, 60, 90, 120, 180. So how do we get to 200 for the start? I guess that's my question. Like, so why am I asking for 200 as opposed to 180 or 365?
Well, I mean, that's the same question. Why 90? It sounds like you guys can't figure it out in 90, so maybe you need 200.
90's in town.
Okay, great. Well, then we need to figure this out. And you guys, we need to figure out the zoning before 90 days. Because it sounds like you guys don't have a plan to figure out what to do between now and the next time Provident is able to submit a petition. Or stops some other data center company, right? So like, not only am I trying to stop Provident from submitting, but I'm trying to stop any developer from submitting for 200 days. It's not forever. It's just, hey, we know this thing, we gotta go slow, and we need 200 days in order to do it. We need to put proper ordinances in, and it's probably gonna take 200 days. Yeah, you're gonna have only 3 town council meetings and 3 planning commission meetings between now and then.
I hear your concern. I don't have a specific answer for you. I mean, you're asking me to make something happen that I just don't know. I mean, I'll work on it and see what I can do.
Yeah.
So I just can't guarantee you that. Like, first off, I gotta look and see if there's even a legal precedent and or if it's something that can be done. Maybe there's a restriction, like, I mean, you could be asking for something that I could then be lawfully in trouble for. Like, I'm not gonna do that either, just because it's something that a few people want. Now, regardless, there's 90 days, okay? After 90 days, then somebody would have to petition to come before the plan commission for a preliminary. Then they would have to have a public hearing. So your 90 days is actually 150. There's no action to be took prior. Does that make sense?
All right, so let's say it only took us 60 days to figure this out. Would we be able to change the zoning in 60 days? So how long would it take?
We don't know. Just said we don't know how long it's going to take. We're going to do our best. We don't have a date.
Figure out exactly what needs to be accomplished and to take everybody's opinions into account. Can you give me 1 second? I'm not trying to be rude here, but I think she has something pertinent to say to this conversation.
My name is Tina Rogers, I'm a consultant with redevelopment. Partner, and I'm just asking for a kind of clarification. What I'm hearing is that we are currently in the good of the order, which is a opportunity for the public to make comments. And what I want a point of clarification on is the request of Mr. Orlando, an action item that is not on the agenda that is seeking to be answered right now. Or is there a direction that can be given to Mr. Orlando that he can write his request for a 200-day ordinance, consider or delay, whatever he wants to title it, make a written request to the plan commission so it can be responded to, because I think there's also another point of clarification that this public asking for a 200-day delay that is an exception to our town code, and that should be distinct from the petitioner's withdrawal. Those are my two items for brief clarification.
I understand where you're coming from. And the best I can tell you is I'll see what we can do. Like, we can look into it. I mean, you're asking for me to guarantee something that I can do that.
All I'm asking is for you guys to consider it probably at the next plan commission or at the next town council, which is on Wednesday. Because again, right now, I don't feel very good that we have a good plan. And that in 90 days, we're just gonna end up exactly where we were 2 weeks ago.
We're all gonna consider it. We're all looking into it. We're all reading into everything. We really, really are. But we cannot give you an answer on what you're asking now. So I don't know where.
And I'll make sure it's on the agenda items for council meetings and planning commission, because the more we delay, it's just gonna, 90 days is gonna creep up, and it sounds like a lot of time right now, but it sounds like it's not if we can't get the zoning in place before then. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? The only thing I like, Kaz, I like to thank the fire department and specifically Adam for helping set this up. We could not get, I'm sorry, and Ryan, you're here. So, Human Falls was unavailable. That meeting room is great as it is, won't hold probably even this amount of people. So I appreciate the time to move all the trucks out, clean this place up, and get chairs set up for us to have a meeting. I know it's not perfect, but all we got. We're a small town of 2,200 people, no meetings. So thank you. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Roll call, Jennifer.
Who's first and who's second?
I got Bernie.
Roseanne Bozak.
Yes.
Travis Dunlap.
Yes. Yeah.
Michelle Watkins. Gordon McCormick.
Yes.
Aaron Adcock.
Yes.
Bernie Poprod. Terry McCart.
Yeah. All the time.